Good morning. We're here with Roxanne Clay this morning to answer some questions about West Virginia ABLE. We know that many of you have heard of that, and we just want to make sure that you have the details that are important to you regarding setting up an ABLE account.
It's something that I think is fantastic and something that's been going on for a while. Many people have asked about it, so thank you very much, Roxanne. Now, this is through the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office. This is actually a pretty new thing, Roxanne. Just talk a little bit about where it came from, and then we can get into some details about what a WVABLE account is.
Sure. So WVABLE, it is a savings account program. It's specific to individuals with a disability. It allows folks to save above that $2,000 mark without being at risk for losing their benefits such as SSI Medicaid. WVABLE, it is based on federal legislation called the ABLE Act. The ABLE Act was established in 2014, and ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. The ABLE Act created these savings account programs, but it also enabled each state to establish their own program. And so February of 2018 is when West Virginia's program launched, thanks to Treasurer Perdue, as it's not mandated that we have a program, but we feel very fortunate that we do have one in West Virginia. And currently there are 42 states that have a program. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary in February. Our program is still relatively new. We work really hard to try to promote and educate. But the fact of the matter is that this is even national statistics, that less than 1% of eligible individuals actually own an ABLE account. So we're still working to let folks know that the program exists. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to be on your call today to help spread the word and just let folks know more about what the WVABLE accounts are and how they benefit folks.
That's why we're so glad you're here with us, because we know that the participation rate could be improved and increased, and we want people to understand the benefit of participating. Can you tell us a little bit about who is eligible to open an account?
An eligible individual would be the individual with a disability. And so in West Virginia, the individual would need to be a West Virginia resident. The disability onset would have had to have occurred prior to age 26, and they would need to be living with their disability for at least a year, or it's expected to last for over a year. In addition to that criteria, one of the following: the individual would need to be entitled to receive SSI or SSDI due to their disability, but keep in mind that they don't actually have to be receiving in order to be eligible. They only need to be eligible to receive SSI or SSDI, or they have a condition that's listed on Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowances condition. And one thing that I will do is WVABLE.com website is the hub of where all of what we're talking about today and further information can be found. That's also where folks go to actually enroll. So as folks are listening to this call, if they want to go ahead and if they have the ability to get online and go to WVABLE.com website, they can actually look and reference the things that I'm mentioning as we're talking today. On our website, if you go to the eligibility tab, it goes into a lot more detail about eligibility. I will say that most folks are eligible as a result of being eligible for SSI or SSDI due to their disability. But if, let's say, they've applied and they haven't received a response yet and they're just not sure, that's where you're going to go down the line and then consider if they have a condition under SSA's list of compassionate allowances conditions. There is a list. We have that hyperlinked on our website at the eligibility tab, in which they can click and go directly to SSA's website to review a list of those conditions. So let's say they can't find their condition that's listed. Well, then they're just basically self-certifying their disability and their diagnosis. And what that means is that they have a physician, whether it be their current treating physician or the physician that diagnosed their disability, basically stating and certifying that they have a physical or mental impairment that results in marked and severe functional limitation. Now, the other thing I'll add, as we're going through this information The enrollment in a WVABLE, it's not an application that you're submitting. You're basically answering questions through the enrollment process. So, for example, your question about eligibility, that is one of the things that the individual will respond to during the enrollment piece. So if they're self-certifying, they're not going to be asked to upload or provide a letter of the self-certification. They're simply certifying that the information that they're providing is correct, and then they would just keep that letter on hand in case that was ever to be asked or if it's needed.
Does this involve people with just developmental disabilities? Is this with physical disabilities? Because some people may already have the idea, oh, well, I just have a physical disability, so I'm not eligible, or I only have a certain mental illness or something like that, and so they may disqualify themselves without actually finding out.
Right. So a disability would be an impairment, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, that causes marked and severe functional limitations. And it would be dependent on what Social Security determines as the disability.
Oh, okay. And actually, I understand there's an eligibility quiz that's on the website as well. So if you're not sure, it will kind of lead you through and help you make that determination in case you're not positive if you qualify.
That's correct. There is an eligibility quiz on the website. Now, as folks go there and they're answering the questions, let's say that you hit a roadblock and you think, oh, well, I don't think I'm eligible. Don't let that stop you. That's why we want you to review the information that goes into a little bit more detail at the eligibility tab to determine eligibility.
I know we could talk hours about this, so we don't want to be super involved because most of that is on the website, but I did have one question. When you click that eligibility quiz, it says, would you like to open an account for yourself or for someone else? So while we're talking about a WVABLE account, this is something you actually open for someone else, not just yourself?
That's right. So the individual with the disability, that is the actual owner of the account. They're the beneficiary. They can be the one to complete the enrollment piece and manage the account on their own behalf. But let's say in the case of it as a child, or if it's an adult that's not able to enroll and manage, then the law says, the Federal ABLE Act says that the authorized legal representative can then enroll and manage. And what's defined as an authorized legal representative is either the parent, a guardian or conservator, or a designated financial power of attorney. And when you click on the enroll and you answer the questions, that'll be one of the first things that's asked is, are you the beneficiary, the individual with the disability, or are you the authorized legal representative?
Oh, that's great information, Roxanne. The next thing we wondered about was, since this is a savings account for people and the purpose is for them to be able to use it for a need down the road, what are some eligible uses or eligible expenses for an ABLE account?
A qualified disability expense, the definition of that is very liberal. Oftentimes when I'm doing presentations, I'll tell folks it might be more helpful to consider what is not considered a qualified disability expense. And an example of that would be if you made a withdrawal to just give the money away, or if you're using it for gambling, or let's say tobacco or alcohol. Pretty much anything else qualifies as a disability-related expense. We have housing, education. Just recently, Social Security, they updated their policy manual in March to include food as an actual qualified disability expense. Health, wellness, legal fees, all of those would be considered qualified disability expenses. And the other piece to look at this too is, if you answer the question, does it help to maintain or improve health, independence, or quality of life?
Some people might think, though, a quality of life is, hey, let's go to Hawaii. So are you allowed to take it and go on vacation and take the family to the beach?
Yeah, that is considered a quality of life expense. So yes, a vacation, even a trip to the movies, all of that is considered a qualified disability expense. The one addition that I'm going to add to that is when monies are used for housing or let's say rent, Social Security does have some additional requirement in that if you're withdrawing monies to pay for rent, you want to make sure that those monies leave your hands the same calendar month that you withdrew the money. If let's say you withdraw on the 25th, but you actually don't pay your rent until the following month, let's say on the 3rd, then those monies actually carried over and they would be considered an asset in your hands for that following month. So just keep that in mind, as you're making withdrawals from the WVABLE account, in that the money's paying for housing, it just needs to be paid out the same month that you withdrew the money.
Who's keeping track of that? Is that something that the IRS is doing? Are you doing? Is there a tracking system? How do you have to prove that you're spending the money correctly?
It's always recommended and that the individual that is managing the account, whether that be the account owner, the beneficiary, or the authorized legal representative, that they keep records and they keep an audit trail. So any contributions, deposits, but all of your expenditures, keep for you're spending the monies on. This is an IRS program, so it is their purview to audit the ABLE account. And also Social Security has a right to ask questions and ask for records and audit the accounts.
Very good. So I think we've covered a lot of the nuts and bolts and the how-to, and we know that people can go to the website for the information. Can you just explain why you think this is so important to people with disabilities to have this opportunity?
ABLE accounts are a game changer for people with disabilities, and it has been said that it's perhaps the biggest advancement for people with disabilities since the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, that passed in 1990. Before the ABLE Act, individuals with disabilities could only save up to $2,000 without being at risk for them losing SSI and Medicaid benefits. But now with ABLE accounts, they can save well above that $2,000 mark. They can actually save up to $15,000 per year, and those monies in an ABLE account are disregarded when determining eligibility or continued eligibility for means-tested federal and state benefits. So we could go on about this with a lot of different things, but, one thing to keep in mind that, the legislation did originate 10 years ago. Even though it passed in 2014, there were families that worked hard to get this legislation in place. And it actually started in Virginia with a group of parents that were sitting around a kitchen table. And, they were able, they had a child with a disability, and then they had a child that did not have a disability. They were able to save for the child without a disability. For example, you're familiar with the 529 college savings plan. So, this is a sister program of the college savings specific to individuals with a disability. So they wanted the opportunity to save for the long term. Parents knew that they weren't always going to be here. They wanted to make sure that children were taken care of financially once they were gone. And so they fought for this, and it was years in the making. 2014, the ABLE Act passed, and it now allows families to save and plan for the financial future and independence for their children without being afraid. And that has always been the fear. And that's part of the reason why folks are still learning about the ABLE accounts. They're also still trusting about the ABLE accounts because they've always been told that they cannot save. And so now that they can save, they're still a little bit reluctant. So we are constantly reiterating that it's the SSI, it's the Medicaid, but it's also HUD and SNAP benefits that are disregarded as far as monies in an ABLE account when determining eligibility and continued eligibility for these programs. We do appreciate the opportunities like this to educate and to share, but then also when trusted organizations like the ARC, other advocacy groups are, giving testimonies and helping to share their experiences, that also helps for folks to know and to learn and to trust about the ABLE accounts as well.
And that's why we're so glad you were able to be here with us today. We do recognize the value and the difference that it can make in people's lives. And we appreciate your taking the time to be here with us to explain that and share your message and hopefully decrease the fear a little bit and increase the participation.
Absolutely. And if I can just add a couple more things, like I said, back in February, we did celebrate our 2-year anniversary the WVABLE, we have partnered with Ohio's Stable program, and they are the first program in the nation that did start an ABLE account and program. There's 12 partner states within Stable. So they are the strongest program in the nation in that 25% of all account holders are Stable account holders. West Virginia, we've just celebrated a little bit of a milestone in which we reached 250 accounts here recently. So, and we're also have over $1 million in assets. So that means that over 250 West Virginia individuals with disabilities and their families, have taken an opportunity and taken advantage of owning an ABLE account in which they have benefits as far as the eligibility and, the monies are sheltered resource. But then also there's tax benefits in that, all contributions that are made to a West Virginia ABLE account qualifies for West Virginia state income tax deduction. So that's any West Virginia resident, whether that be the parent, a family member, they make a contribution into a WVABLE that qualifies for a West Virginia state income tax deduction. Another benefit is that the interest earnings grow tax-free in a WVABLE account. And then again, that it's not considered income of withdrawals as long as it's spent on the qualified disability expenses. We do a lot of outreach. So if there's anyone listening to this call that is affiliated with an organization or an advocacy group and they would like a presentation, they can just reach out to me at the 304-340-5050 number. That's to the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office, WVABLE. And they can also email me at wvable@wvsto.com. We can schedule a presentation now that we're all kind of quarantined to our homes. We can conduct those presentations via audio or video. I can also mail hard copy material to organizations or even the individuals. There's lots of ways to stay connected with WVABLE. We launched a WVABLE specific Facebook page back in November. So please go to find the page, like and follow and share. Post lots of good information there as far as education, informing folks. We are including testimonials from actual account owners or the family, the parents. Anytime we are going to be presenting at an event that's open to the public, we'll go ahead and post that there so folks can learn about that ahead of time and can plan to possibly attend. We share informative articles, that's meant to be helpful to the individual with a disability and their families. We've shared a few things regarding this COVID-19 and some potential resources that might be helpful to them. Another way to stay connected with WVABLE is to sign up for our quarterly e-newsletter. Again, send me an email, and I'll be happy to sign you up to receive that. That's a great way to stay up on any program enhancements or changes, any legislative enhancements at the state or the federal level. We're also including testimonials there. And the other thing is we're always looking for testimonials. So if you are an account holder or a family member of an individual with a disability that's managing the account, reach out to us and let us know how that's working for you. The enrollment piece is very easy and it's rather quick. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And even the management of the account online is very easy and easy to maneuver across the different tabs. So, again, share your testimonials with us. We have a form. I'll be happy to send that to you. The WVABLE.com website, we mentioned that's where folks go to actually enroll in the account. It's all done online, and there is no paper application. There's no banks to go to, and it's an enrollment. It's not an actual application where there's an approval process. You're just certifying that the information that's been submitted is correct.
Just two real quick things I want to make sure we cover. One is some people, since this is going statewide, live on the border, and when you log on to Google and put in ABLE account, you might get another state. Why is it important to sign up for a WVABLE account as opposed to any other surrounding state? And then the other thing is make sure the next step after enrollment, because I understand some people have enrolled and then not carried forward with one extra step to make sure the account's active. So if you could just briefly cover those two little things, that's all I want to make sure we don't miss out.
So glad that you asked that, because there's so much. We could talk about this for an hour or 2 hours to go over all the details. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. So when folks go, if they were to do a Google search for WVABLE or even just ABLE in general, there is another state program, for example, that's going to pop up. And that state program is actually out of Virginia. It is a national program, so technically speaking, anyone can enroll in a national program, whether that be Virginia or any other state that has a national program. However, you will not receive the benefits of the West Virginia resident and taxpayer if you're enrolled in a national program and not the WVABLE. For example, in 2019, there was state legislation that passed for the West Virginia resident and the WVABLE account owner, in which, and we did mention this briefly, that contributions to a WVABLE account does qualify for West Virginia state income tax deduction. So that's one. The other is the Medicaid clawback. And so it used to be that the Bureau for Medical Services, it was their policy that they would not seek repayment from a WVABLE account after the death of an individual to recover medical expenses that were paid on behalf of the individual. Well, now, as a result of the 2019 legislation, it's now state law that they are not allowed to try to reclaim those monies that were paid out for medical expenses. So that's another benefit. And also in 2019 legislation, it used to be that guardians could not manage monies on behalf of the individual above $2,000. Well, now, through this legislation, guardians can manage monies in a WVABLE account above the $2,000 mark. So you are not protected as a West Virginia resident for the West Virginia legislation if you have enrolled in a national program.
The other quick question was about one more step, because once you enroll, if you don't take the next step and actually activate the account, then it doesn't. You don't get the benefit of it.
That's right. So one thing that happens when you've completed the enrollment piece, again, it takes about 10, 15 minutes. You do need to have an email address. Okay, you're going to get an email confirmation of your account that that you have completed the enrollment piece. The next step, though, is there is a $50 minimum deposit that is needed in the account. You can either mail a check to Stable Program Manager, and that address is included on the website. That check needs to be, the $50 contribution needs to be made as soon as possible. That actually finalizes the activation to where you can then utilize the account. So again, you do that via check or electronic funds transfer. And what that means is you're linking a checking or a savings account within the Stable account. Once that account is linked, then you can transfer money from that checking or savings over to the ABLE account, or that's also how you could make withdrawals. Now, because it's a bank, the bank does require a micro deposit verification. So what Stable is going to do is deposit like a few pennies into this checking or savings account. You need to go into that checking or savings account, determine what those amounts were, log back into your Stable, enter those amounts, and then that actually completes that micro deposit verification process. Then you can actually withdraw that $50 from that checking or savings and move it over into the Stable, and then that will complete that minimum contribution requirement. Now, one thing I will add, on occasion, there is sometimes maybe, when you're enrolling the account, you're entering in contact information, mailing address, social security number, date of birth. Sometimes there will be, it'll be thrown off. Perhaps if somebody's moved, maybe their mailing address doesn't match up, or social security, there's some kind of a disconnect there. So that will flag what they call a verification request. And so be on the lookout for alerts within the ABLE account or via email. So always check on your emails. Well, sometimes those Stable emails land in your junk folder. just make sure that you're checking your junk and that you are actually receiving. The deposit is absolutely one step. The other is the ID verification. Just make sure that you're following through and providing the information that's needed to verify the alert for Stable needing that information would come either when they log into the account, they're going to receive an alert that's needed, or they would receive that via email. So they can check those places for that. But that goes back to your question about actually activating the account so that the account can then be utilized.
Roxanne, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
I will add one more item that we're really excited about. So WVABLE, we have partnered with Disability Rights in West Virginia, in which we're going to be offering a workshop. We initially had that workshop planned for the end of May, but of course, given COVID-19, we are delaying that until October. Be on the lookout on our WVABLE Facebook page or the newsletter for updates on the actual date. But what we're doing is it's going to be a half-day workshop where we're offering different financial sessions for the attendees. It's free, and we will have door prizes. We'll have free lunch. We will have presenters, for example, from BB&T that's offering information about savings and budgeting, WVU, Centers for Excellence in Disability, to talk about how the SSI recipient can save more when they're employed. The legal director for Disability Rights will talk about Special Needs Trust and how they work with WVABLE. We'll have Rebecca Stone to talk about her organization, Luke Stone Illumination Fund. We'll also have actual on-site enrollment opportunities, and I'll be doing some live demos on the enrollment process and the Stable Card enrollment. So just, again, be on the lookout for updates about that. We're very excited to be offering this type of workshop. It's the first time we will have done this, but we're excited about it, and we think it's going to be a great opportunity for folks that are interested, or even folks that own an account at that point. They can attend to learn how to maximize on their WVABLE account.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate this great opportunity, the great information, and we look forward to being able to share more information about your event so that we can get lots of people there to really benefit from this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And again, I'll just reiterate, WVABLE.com is the website. For questions, folks can call me 304-340-5050, or they can email me at wvable@wvsto.com. And thank you again for having me, and you all stay safe and well, and to your listeners as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.